Good morning, all you good gardeners out there. I hope the weather's good where you are. It's not great here at the minute, a little bit clouded over, but it's dry. We had some good rain yesterday, and the plot has come alive. So what I want to talk to you about today is compost, and the lack of decent compost you can get hold of, and the cost of it as well. The cost's ridiculous. So I'm going to show you how I do my compost, more for next year. But I have got a little bit of compost that I found this week that's been a lovely, pleasant surprise. So I'm going to show you how that compares to the bought compost that you get from the local garden centre or superstore. So before I do that, we'll have a quick walk down the plot over to where I've got the two different types of compost, and we'll take a look at that and see what you think of it. So let's follow me down here. Plot's looking in rude health at the minute. As I said, we've had some really nice rain, and some decent temperatures, so it's all looking really good at the minute. As I say, I hope everything's okay where you guys are. Hello Stu, play with you later mate. The brassicas are coming on, and my peas over there, my beans. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you the two different examples of compost I've got. A shop bought compost and a real pleasant surprise that I found this week. I managed to find, by accident really, I had quite a small compost bin that I filled with greens and browns, as you do. But it was over 4 years ago. It was tucked out the way. I forgot I had it, and I stumbled across it this week. I couldn't even remember whether I'd filled it. It was that long ago since I used it. And then when I opened it up, I found it was completely composted down, and it was completely full, the bin. It was only a small bin, but it was full nevertheless. And then when I emptied the compost out, put it into some bags, the quality of it was, compared to what you buy in the shops, was absolutely fantastic. So I want to show you the difference between them two, and the consistency and just how it's made up and how it smells and everything. It just shows you how poor the compost is that we're buying at the minute from the manufacturers. And if you can make your own, well, that's the way to go. I understand not everybody's got 4 years to let it compost and degrade and everything else. It was by accident, but it just shows you how good the quality of the compost is if you can give it the time to compost down correctly from its raw materials, and how much benefit it'll give the garden. So anyway, I'll set the camera up and I'll show you the two different types of compost that I've got, and see what you think. Hello folks, welcome back. Right, like I said earlier, I was fortunate enough to rediscover an old compost bin that I'd set up about 4 years ago. Completely forgot about it. It was tucked out the way, out of sight. I found it this week, and to my delight it was full of 4-year-old homemade compost. So I'm going to just show you how it compares to some of the recently shop bought compost that I've got. Now the shop bought compost is Westland's Jack's Magic. I don't suppose it's any better or worse than any other manufacturers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that first, and then get my homemade compost out, and then just see how all of that compares. So we'll get the shop bought compost out first. I'll just scoop it out. And then we'll see what we think of it in comparison. Well, just to show you that it is Jack's Magic. That is what I'm getting out now. Straight out the bag, not been touched. Just as we bought it. So there we go. Now I'll just show you. It's really quite woody. Now I find most of the compost we get now are like this. This is just typical of any bag of compost we get from the general stores and from the standard garden centres and such like. Now, I find that it looks to me, don't know whether you can pick that up, but it's really quite fibrous, almost like it's just wood chip that's just been shredded. That's what it feels like. It feels like a shredded timber. Now, let's have a look. Bit of a twig. As I say, really quite dry, and you can see how that breaks up, and there doesn't seem to be a lot in that to me. Any decent stuff anyway. There's some more timber. It's like old wooden canes and stuff and that. But you can see how that breaks up. It's quite, it doesn't really hold. In fact, if you look at that, okay, I grab that and let go of it, and it just doesn't hold together. It's just almost papery, like. Feels like paper. So, I mean, look at the size of some of them. So if I was to put that in here, in my sieve, just put it in, and we'll give it a quick sieve. And in fact, there's a stone. I can already see that. How does a pebble get into that? Right, okay, so I'm going to give this a quick sieve now. With the rest of it. And we'll see what's left in it after it's sieved. And we'll see what the consistency is like in the sieved compost that you might want to use for sowing seeds and such like. I say it's quite dry, but it has been in a bag. There we go. Now that was one sieve's worth of compost that's gone in there. That's what's left. So if you can imagine how big that pile was a minute ago, this is what we're left with. Just like powder. And there's even some stones in that, but they're quite small, so they've managed to fall through that. It looks like a bit of perlite, but it's not. It's a stone. Little tiny stone. There's loads of them in it, but they've managed to. Some more. They've managed to fall through the sieve. But if you look at that, it isn't great, is it? Let me move all that out the way now and compare it to mine. Oh, and as I say, that's what's left out of that. Twigs, stones, more stones, bits of it looks like just wood pulp and fibre. I mean, look at that. What use is that to anyone? Rubbish. Look at that. It's all rubbish. And that's what's left out of that. So let me just get rid of that and I'll come back and we'll look at some of the homemade compost that we've got. Now, I did bag up the homemade compost into one of the bags I had. So I'll just put this in. As I say, this has gone straight out of the compost bin into a bag so I can bring it up here. I don't even remember what I put in this because it's so old. As I say, it's 4 years old. But I just wanted to compare what it's like. Okay, so that's just gone straight in there, and already you can see. Look how rich that looks. So rich. Probably alive with microbial life. So what I'll do, I'll sieve this now, and we'll see what we're left with inside the. You see how quickly that's going through already? Look at that. It's going straight through. Now what we've got there is just crumbly bits of compost. We'll just break them up. As I say, this has been through no sort of process to break it up. Take that up. Because not all of it is broken down quite yet. So I can still see there's still little clumps of cardboard and stuff that must have been added at the time. So just take them little bits up there. There we go, and that went through a lot quicker. And what we're left with are just some of the bits of rubbish that I must have put in. So we've got, that looks like an old tea bag. But a lot of this, even these what look like big lumps, they'll actually, they'll just break up. It's pretty much, I would say 95% of what's in that is usable. Even the bits that look like the bits of twigs and that, they break up. There are some bits, like that one's quite hard, maybe a bit of twig, small bit. But if you look at what's left in that, compared to what was left in the shop bought one, you can see there's a massive difference. Now we'll look at what the end product looks like once it's sieved. Look how crumbly that is. Oh, if we had smelly vision it'd be great, because that's the shop bought one, as you can see. It's powdery, there's hardly any smell to it. This stuff, oh, just smells like air, good solid air. Now if I hold that together, as I say, that holds together perfectly. Again, I'll do it again. You see that? It's absolutely beautiful and so much better. So if you can make your own compost, please do so, because it's just so much better. So we'll compare them again. Look at the difference in that one fibrous, that one just beautiful soil. So my tip would be to always, if you can, make your own compost. And I'm gonna be doing some of that today. So I'm going to take you over to my compost bins now. I'm going to give you a quick description of what I'm going to do today, and then I'll film some of it and it'll form part of this video. So if you just bear with me, I'll take you over to my compost bins. Oh, just 1 second. As I say, there's a close-up of the difference. Look at that, absolutely beautiful. Now bear in mind that wasn't really by design. I was quite lucky that I just forgot about that bin, so that's 4 years old. I know no gardener's going to have the time to do that. And there's the shop board, just like fibre, rubbish. But if you can give yourself, I don't know, 12 months, if you can get ahead of yourself and get some compost bins on the go, time soon flies and you'll end up with great compost. Right, I'll show you what we've got here. As in a much earlier video of mine, I told you about some fresh horse manure that I got. So these are the horse manure piles that have dropped right down now. These were up here and they've dropped right down. They got the temperatures right up into the 60s and 70s. They've obviously cooled down now, so I want to put a bit more life back into them. If we go inside here, you can see it is breaking down, but there's still a lot of bedding and stuff inside that. Now don't worry, that doesn't smell, it's not fresh. I'm perfectly okay to put my hands in it. It'll do you absolutely no harm. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to empty this one as much as I can of that one into there, and then I'm going to, with this pile here, I'm going to try and get a load more greens into it to get the temperature back up. Now I've got a load of greens here that I've piled up ready to go in. This is all dead fresh, and what this is from is the track down there that leads up onto the site. I just cut back all the hedgerows yesterday, and if you think this is all free, completely free, so it just took a little bit of elbow grease, a pair of shears, and I cut down about 60-70 yards of or just trim back 60-70 yards of privet and hedgerow. So that's all fresh. So I'll film this for you now today. I'll take most of that out of there, put it into this one. I'll then stockpile in there all that green material, and then I'll put this back on top of that, and that should get the temperature back up and again just aid the composting process. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to film that, and that's how I do my compost. I won't be leaving it 4 years like that one I've just shown you, but by the winter hopefully, or early next spring, what, 6-7 months, because the horse manure is about 12 months old, it should have broken down to something that I could definitely use, and then we'll see what it looks like in the winter. I'll show you again. So I'll just get set up and then I'll bring you back, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with my compost bins. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so the first job is to make space in this horse manure pile. So I'll simply move this into that one. Oh, do you know what? It's absolutely full of worms. Maybe you can see them. Hopefully you can see them. Absolutely full of worms, which is a great sign. I mean, look at that. God, that looks fantastic. I mean, you guys probably can't see that, but it's loaded with worms, and they'll all be doing their job of helping to break down this horse manure. But as I say, what I'm going to do today is moving this out and turning it, and then getting a load of fresh greens in, and in amongst them greens as well there's also some browns, because as I say, I cut back quite a bit of the hedgerow, and you've also got the twigs, you know, and the stems. This is actually in much better condition than I expected. I didn't expect that many worms in it. Doing fantastic. So I'll keep doing this, make some space down here, and then I'll get the greens in. Just take that back there. So I'll get this ready and then bring you back in a second. So guys, welcome back. I'll show you what I've got. So I've emptied this well rotted manure down to about 10 inches, piled it on top there, and put around 10 inches of the well rotted manure in there. I always try and have 4 bins, because then you've always got a spare bin to be able to turn your compost from one bin into an empty bin. So this was the empty bin, so that's got about 10 inches worth of manure in. This has got about 10 inches worth of manure in, and then here is all them lovely greens that I've got. Now, one of the biggest problems with trying to make compost is having enough greens. It's not easy, but I'm fortunate, because as you can see, the border of my plot, I have a lovely hedgerow, and also, like I said earlier, the hedgerow that lines the driveway to the plot, just up there. I'll show you it. Up and over my car. I'm hoping you can see that. So that's about 70 yards, and that was the one I got on with last night in the rain. Nobody was about, so I trimmed it all back. Everyone will come back and think, oh, somebody's trimmed the hedge, that looks nice. But there's a method to me madness, because it allowed me to pick up lots and lots of free greens. And if you've got hedges at home, or your neighbours are cutting their hedges, why don't you ask them, could you have their clippings, or do it for them if they're elderly? Give them do a little job for them, and then you get the benefit of having lovely fresh greens to make your compost out of. Now, one thing I will say is, when you're cutting back the hedgerows, just have a quick look and see if there's no nesting birds in there. I did go through that hedgerow very quickly, had a quick check. There was nothing close to where I was going to be trimming back, so I didn't disturb anything. So just bear that in mind if you are, at this time of year especially, mid to late May, cutting back the hedgerows because obviously birds will be nesting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to split these greens half and half. I'm going to put half in this bay, half in this bay, and then I'll top it up with the rest of that manure there. So this bay and that second bay will be full, hopefully full to the brim, and the greens that'll sit within that will be like the engine room of the compost heap. They'll start to break down, create loads and loads of heat, loads and loads of nutrients and foods for the worms that I showed you earlier, and then just help to break down not only themselves but the rest of that horse manure, which means hopefully come winter or next spring I'll have some really nice free compost. I mean, if you look at that, each of them bays I would say holds around, it's about a cubic ton, I would say, when they're full to the brim, cubic ton of compost. So if I can make that break down enough, I mean, how much would that cost you? It costs you hundreds of pounds, especially if you're buying it in bags, because you know not everybody can have a ton of compost delivered, just because of the logistics of it. But if you can build yourself some bays like these, which are just old pallets knocked up, some old doors on the front, I'll potentially have, if I have 3 full bins, 3 cubic tons of free compost. I mean, what's not to like about that idea? Right, I'm going to crack on with this now. I'll just show you how it looks when I do it, and then that'll be me done for the day. I'll see you in a minute. So the greens will go on now. As I say, it's the heat generated from the breakdown of these greens that becomes the engine room for the compost pile. Now I have covers for my compost heaps here, just in case we're going to get sustained periods of wet weather, which could just make your compost pile just too wet and soggy. I've left them open this week because they were a little bit dry and they needed some rain. We've had some rain, so I would imagine the water consistency in these is really quite good now. I mean, this is not exact science, it's just kind of, you get a feel for it. Your pile is too wet or too dry, because you don't want that. It needs to be damp, it needs to have some damp in it in order for the process to work properly. So I've had these open for the last week or so, letting some rain in, but if we're forecast of lots and lots of rain, then I'll cover them just to maintain the temperature. And likewise, if we're forecast of lots and lots and lots of dry weather, then by all means get a watering can and water your pile, just so it maintains a level of moisture. I mean, we all know about moisture with our soil and that. We don't want it too dry, we don't want it too wet. It's exactly the same with a compost pile. And it was all free. Who doesn't love free stuff? What I'm doing now is layering it. And another thing you can do, I have already done that with this, but maybe I could do it a little bit more, is is get your shears and just chop it up as much. The more you chop this up as you use it, the quicker it'll break down. So if you leave really big thick twigs, too thick twigs, they'll take a long time to break down. So I'll come up, if I've got a lot of greens, I'll get my shears and I'll just go through it and chop it up, chop it up. It's great exercise as well, get a bit of cardio on the go. So I'll just show you how that looks now, very quickly. So I've got a layer of greens and another layer, quite thick layer of greens there. So they're about 6-8 inches deep. So what I'll do now, I might just put you back there. Should be able to see that still. I'll now throw a layer of the manure on top. Now that we've added quite a lot of greens, we need to make sure that we also add browns. Now there's plenty of browns already in this because of the horse manure bedding, but one great source of browns, if you can get your hands on it, is just shredded paper. If anyone's got a home shredder or they work in an office, there's a lot of stationery that gets shredded. Shredded paper is really, really good source of browns, and if it's shredded it breaks down really, really easily. Now I don't know the exact required ratios of greens to browns. I mean, there's all sorts of different ideas on it, and different people will tell you different things. I just generalise and just get plenty of greens in, and then I just add some browns as and when I've got it. and that seems to work for me. And then I just continue adding from the old pile. So guys, welcome back. There we have it. We've got one empty bay now that has all the greens in. Half of them greens are now sat right smack in the centre of all that well rotted horse manure. That'll be like the engine room inside, and it'll fire up, it'll break down, it'll fire up loads of heat, and help to break all of that horse manure down even more. Another empty bay there now. Again, that'll be used for stocking up with greens when I get them. And then there's the other pile. So now I would imagine I've got probably at the moment 2 cubic ton of what will become really good, well rotted horse manure stroke compost for the rest of the year. So that's me pretty much done for the day, except for one thing. It'll probably form the title to this video, and that is what I showed you earlier regarding the types of compost, your own versus the shop bought. Now, if they can call that compost, good compost, the manufacturers, then I can definitely call that my own super compost, because that is far superior. So if you want to make super compost, give it a try. Remember, lots and lots of greens, add enough browns, and then it'll break down, and you'll have your very own free compost, rather than buying it from manufacturers when you don't know what's gone into it. At least when you do it yourself, you know exactly what's gone into that compost, and you know the quality of it. You feel it, touch it before you hand over any money, and best of all, it's free. So my advice to you would be to make your own compost. Now, there's a new book just come out by Tony O'Neill from Simplified Gardening. I'll see if I can find the link and I'll put it in the description. He's somebody who knows everything there is to know about making your own compost. So by all means enjoy my video, but see if you can get on ebooks or order off the internet his complete guide to making compost, because I'm sure you'll definitely learn something. I know I did. Okay, that's over and out from me today. I hope it's great where you are. Have a good weekend's gardening. If you've liked the video, you can like it. If you'd like to subscribe, that'd be fantastic. And I'll see you soon. Bye for now.